What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Cleveland Pulse YouTube channel. I'm your host, Justin Harold, and with me, as always, my co-host, Jeff Santa. Today, we are bringing you guys the recap for the Browns Week 17 matchup against the Washington Commanders. I almost called them the football team, but we're also bringing you guys just general Browns news as we move forward with this team with no playoffs in sight, with the offseason in the front view with one more game ahead of us against the Steelers at not Heinz, whatever the new place is called. Jeff, what is the new place called?
Acrisure Stadium.
However the hell you say that, and whatever the hell that is. One more game, a chance to make Mike Tomlin, for the first time in his career, have a losing season. A lot to play for the Browns here, honestly, outside of not making the playoffs and ruining the Steelers' chance of making it to the playoffs and handing them their first losing record underneath this head coach. But also want to quickly just, at the start, Logan did this in our Cavs Encapsulated video. If that comes out and you've watched that before, he made a great point. But Damar Hamlin in the Buffalo game, from Buffalo, in the Cincinnati game, prayers and respects to him, his family, to the players. I can only kind of surmise what Logan said in our previous video, but these guys, at the end of the day, are living people, are people just like me and Jeff, like you guys watching. And it's important to always keep that in mind. So, with that out of the way, Browns news, Browns recap. Jeff, how are you feeling?
Interestingly enough, I think that the Browns game, it kind of shows like the state of why the NFL is so popular, because people still have to play for their jobs.
Yep.
At the end of the day, even if you're a bad team or even if you think you're on a contract, how these contracts are structured, you still have to go out there and play hard, because you might not have a job next year. You might have a couple of weeks left to try to figure it out and try to prove yourself. So at least they came out and showed respect for the game and showed pride for themselves and pride for the organization. Being eliminated, I guess that's all you could really ask for at the end of the day.
Yeah, I was actually genuinely surprised of, just, again, the defense has been playing very well since, I maybe even a little bit, maybe a game before Watson came back. But, they've been playing very well. The offense, in all honesty, I was telling Jeff before we started, this was like one of the quickest games that we've seen or that I've watched personally. The first half went by really quickly. Thought we were going to get Browns again when they scored right before halftime, and then they were going to come out, and I thought they were just going to score, and it was just going to be a typical Browns game. But like Jeff alluded to, showed a lot of heart. And honestly, that, puts me back in the idea of like, and it doesn't put me in the idea of it. I've always had the thought that Kevin Stefanski will be back next year to coach for however many games, but or for the however long future that he may have potentially. I've always believed that he'll be back as the coach. However, I've been thinking for the past couple of weeks that he's doing more and more to hurt himself in that regard and potentially get himself fired at the end of this season. But it's good to see that the team went out against a team that was competing for the playoffs at the time and, put a good show on. So very happy about that. Jeff, were there any plays in particular that stood out to you? The one I do want to ask you a particular specific question that me and my dad got into, or not really got into, but he proposed to me, talked to me about on Sunday. But before I get to that, before I drop that on you, any play or anything specific from the game that you wanted to bring up or talk about?
I just think that the scoring plays is that if you could have explosive scoring plays where it's not always like a methodical drive, we have to get into the red zone, then we have to call the perfect red zone plays. Like if you could get 30, 40-yard, 20-yard touchdown plays, just makes your life so much easier. I don't think anybody will say that Deshaun Watson played a great or an elite game on Sunday, but a 1/3 of his completions were touchdowns. So yeah, he only has 9 completions, but he makes the 3 biggest plays of the game, basically. Evading pressure in the pocket and delivering good footballs. And the receivers actually that's football right there. Like, it's just as crazy to me how little of real football we've actually seen as Brown fans. When you see real football, you're like, holy shit, this is real football, because quarterback makes play, wide receiver catches the ball, wide receiver makes play, touchdown. Like, it's not always going to work out like that. We don't have elite wide receivers. Amari Cooper, great season. Donovan Peoples-Jones, steal for a 6-rounder. Nobody's elite we don't have an elite pass catcher on this team as far as someone who's going to run an elite route, catch the ball in an elite way, and complete the play in an elite fashion a lot of the time. So that was what I took away from it.
I'd argue Amari's elite, maybe not the
elite for what we got him for, but I mean, 1,000 yards. Elite for
he's the best quarterback. He's the best wide receiver we've had since Josh Gordon.
Absolutely. That's not even close.
So, but regardless, great points. And no, I agree with you. Obviously, the big plays are things that I think we were just kind of missing last year. I think that, when you talk about it, Jeff, a lot of the stuff from last year was when you got down into the red zone after a methodical drive and, converted in the red zone maybe. But the thing I wanted to ask you, Jeff, specifically,
yes,
we've been seeing him in the return game do a pretty solid job. This was the first time that we've seen Jerome Ford get a couple of touches, more so than one Kareem Hunt. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Kareem Hunt's definitely a goner from this roster. I'm not sure if he has a whole lot of juice left in the tank as far as his NFL career. I think the best case scenario for him is a change in scenery, somewhere that is willing to give him one last-ditch effort to be the main back. I think he could still have a couple of good years left in his career, but Jerome Ford is another one of these guys where I'm not going to have an opinion on him until we absolutely need to have an opinion on him, mostly because I just get too excitable over these late round guys and I've just been disappointed, even if it's small sample size, but Demetric Felton, is he rosterable next year? He was a guy that, the film, and even though we got him in the 5th or 6th round or whenever we got him, and all of his college highlights and comp to this guy, Darren Sproles comp, whatever. We kind of fall into that draft clickbait a little bit. And it's easy to fall prey to that because you are excited, like, hey, we're adding a young guy to the roster. You never know. You've seen people come out of the 4th to 6th rounds, be really good, be Hall of Famers. So you never know. But I mean, he don't play. He can't even return kickoffs, return punts. Ford's already taken a leap over him in that regard. DPJ does the other stuff. So I'll believe it when I see it, and I'll just be frustrated between me and you right here. I'll be frustrated if we go out and draft another running back.
I will be as well. It frustrates honestly, the handling of the running back room this year has been very, very shoddy. I mean, Nick gets his extension. That's fair in his own right. That's deserved. We tender D'Ernest, and he's a healthy scratch throughout the majority of the year and doesn't get any touches. I don't know if he's had any touches at all this year so far. And then you drafted Ford first, I think, and then tendered Johnson. But then you get halfway through the season and Kareem's asking for a trade. Don't trade him. And now it just seems like he's on the way out. And D'Ernest hasn't seen the field. Like, I understand, like, they kind of did what you're supposed to do with cornerbacks and have a plethora of them. So, like, when they get injured and whatnot, and, they're, cornerbacks are easily injured and out. But on our team, at least. But we just have four good ones, or at least 3 good ones that we've seen. We've seen D'Ernest, we've seen Kareem, we've seen Nick. We don't know about Jerome yet, but they've kept a huge room, and even John Kelly, last year was good at some points. But
correct,
I didn't like how they handled the running.
Honestly,
back. I just thought it was interesting.
I feel like this is the one instance, and I'm sure I'm forgetting somewhere else. And I guess you could kind of argue I think OBJ is kind of like the big one. But outside of that, I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. But this kind of seems like one of the rare Barry situations where somebody on the roster feels like he's been mishandled on the way out. Like if you had any inkling you were going to draft a running back and you have Felton on the roster and you're going to give Chubb the extension, you're going to keep Dearness around. Where was the trade for Kareem before this year started?
Right. I completely forgot about Demetric. I didn't even say him in my little spiel there.
Right.
We thought maybe he was going to get flexed to wide receiver with how little we had at wide receiver.
And it's like, let's just say preseason, like you thinking of, you got a couple of packages where Anthony Schwartz is getting the football. Like there's plenty of telltale signs where Kareem was probably going to be a non-factor going forward. I don't think we thought he was going to be this much of a non-factor during the season, but here we are.
Right. No, I mean, it's completely understandable, especially now when he's probably, I mean, it might also be him just, I mean, I don't know. I don't know that he would just take 2 rushes and just call it quits after that and not just call it quits in general. But moving on from that, Jeff, is there anything else from this game that you want to touch on before we go into our predictions? Because unfortunately, it is only Tuesday as of today, but we probably won't get any significant, updates in terms of, who might play, who might not play until Friday.
And I don't know if it's just like the all-in nature that we've been talking about if your window's the next 2 years, but another game where James Hudson is like called upon and is good.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The Conklin extension I think is going to be a controversial Barry thing in like 6-12 months.
I wonder if they try to flex Hudson
to the left tackle. Either way, though, you're handcuffed. Like, don't take this the wrong way. If you've been following the show, you'll understand what I mean. But that's like a Kobe Altman move. Like, do something to cover your own ass, but like you screwed yourself up front because you drafted Wills, then you give and you drafted Hudson, and you give Conklin an extension. So if one of them's out,
well, technically he didn't draft Wills.
Did he not?
Well, no, his first draft pick was
okay, fair
Newsome
enough.
And because I remember that us freaking out, like his first draft he bagged Newsome and JOK. Remember?
Well, that's fair enough. So what year was Wills?
The year before, the 2 years before that, because we traded Odell first round pick, right? Am I thinking about that right? Or maybe I have it.
Andrew Berry was named. No, he drafted Wills. Browns executive vice president of football operations on January 28th. But that was like we're both kind of correct because like that was he got hired the 28th and then he had to draft somebody in what, April?
Yeah.
So he might not attack. Who knows behind the scenes who technically made that pick? But that it's just regardless, whoever front office, we'll just put the whole front office together because a lot of people wanted you to take Tristan Wirfs there and you didn't. So hindsight's always 20/20, but it's like either way, you drafted a left tackle who was really a right tackle, and now you extend the right tackle, and you have a right tackle who maybe you want to play at left tackle. So,
yeah, no, absolutely. But moving on ahead from that, I say moving on ahead, but I just find it interesting that we have this depth at offensive line running. Well, I say offensive line, not the center position, but offensive line in general and the running back position, and then we don't have it at like the D line position, or linebacker position, but. Regardless, moving forward, Jeff, the Pittsburgh Steelers currently ahead of us in the standings. I believe if we win this game, though, we would move out.
We'd go to third, and they'd go to fourth.
Yes,
because we'd both be 8 and 9, and we'd be 2-0 against them, and we'd have a chance. We'd be 4-2 in the division.
Yep. So, with that being said. Jeff, I understand you and I have already talked before a little bit, just a little bit, got a little bit of an inkling of what you're going to say, but has anything in the last 15 minutes changed your mind to maybe different prediction? Maybe?
I've said it ever since we beat him in the playoff game. I've said it and I'll continue to say it, but I'm going to just switch to saying it a little bit because I've always said The Pittsburgh Steelers are not dead until the Pittsburgh Steelers are not dead. What did I mean by that? Like 3 or what did we play? 17 games now? Like 3-14 season. That's like dead. Like 5-12 is dead. 2 wins, like that's when I'm like, okay, good.
Right.
I'm switching it. Until Mike Tomlin is no longer the head coach, they're not going to be dead. I don't know what it is with that guy. He's a genius. He's always been a genius. I've always respected his game out there. Can't stand him because he's a Steeler, but they got a rookie. They're Trubisky, Pickett, Najee Harris is playing bad football. I think their defense is like not that. It's not as good as it's been in prior years. Their cornerbacks aren't very good. It's basically TJ Watt and, Pickett playing decent football, and they have Deontay Johnson, George Pickens. That's pretty much it for them. And I like how we match up against them. And I think our corners are good against their wide receivers. And I think our wide receivers, one of the rare matchups where it's like, okay, our wide receivers might be better than their corners. And I still don't like our chances. You're at Acrisure Stadium. It's Stefanski versus a head coach, I think, who's better than him. And it's a game that Mike Tomlin needs to win. So I'm going to go 23-21 Steelers.
Damn it, Jeff.
And I hope to be wrong.
I have it as 24-21 the Browns. The Browns started the season with a game winner field goal, and I'm going to call it, they're going to end the season with a game winner field goal.
I'm torn because I think it'll be funny if we go 4-2 in the division, because I'm going to have to go look at the numbers after we finish this, because it'll be tied or our best division performance since 99 literally would have to be, unless there's a weird year we went 5-1, maybe the 2007 season with Derek Anderson we went 5-1, maybe probably not even, and it's like we would be 4-2 in the division, miss the playoffs, but I just don't think it's the game we have the guts to win, which is sad to say.
Yeah, and there's a lot of unknowns on our territory with a couple of injuries and stuff, but yeah, at the end of the day, I can completely understand your viewpoint, and for some reason, I feel like I think I've been wrong. I've been wrong a lot this year when it comes to these predictions, but man, do I feel like I've been off. Hopefully I'm not this time around, but I just feel like after what I saw with the Washington game, and maybe I just saw a very bad Carson Wentz, and maybe that's what it was, but I'm just a little bit more reassured that there is still life in this building, and there still is life in this team. There's a little bit of belief in what's being coached there and what's being taught. And hopefully, that's the case going into this last week. And we have a little bit of positivity going into the off season, because obviously we had a very tough season, not as tough. I don't know if that it was really as tough as like last season was, because last season it was like hard to watch in the sense of like, we know what's wrong, but we not really like, can't do anything about it, or haven't done anything about it, or whatever you want to say. But, this year was just more of like, I can't believe that happened. I couldn't believe that I was 5 minutes away from the RTA, and the Jets were apparently,
I forgot you left that game.
Risen from the dead, and came back and beat us. But those things happen, and we'll live with them, and we'll move on, and we'll get out of this 2022-2023 season and move into the 2023 and 2024 season. But before that happens, Jeff, anything else before we call this one a quits?
No, I mean, the offseason is arguably better for content for the Browns than the regular season anyway, so here we are again.
Yep, here we are again. But if you guys made it this far, please make sure you are subscribing, liking, commenting, letting us know what you guys are thinking heading into this final game of the 2022-2023 NFL season for your Cleveland Browns. Or if you're not a Cleveland Browns fan and you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, leave us your thoughts down in the comments below, and try not to, get too upset about anything. All good, all friends and games at the end of the day. But that all being said, we'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.